family. I pretty much just wanted to come on here and quickly go over the reason for why I'm selling my M2, you know? I'm immediately getting blown up with responses and everything from my Facebook listing, why the car's for sale. So I figured I'd just make a video to explain it and go over why I'm planning on getting rid of my 2024 BMW G87 M2. Honestly, there's too long of a list that I should even have to explain and go over on why I'm getting rid of the car. But it is what it is, so I want to be completely transparent on why I'm getting rid of it. Ultimately, it comes down to it just not really being a driver's car. I'm a car enthusiast. A lot of people that buy these cars just aren't car enthusiasts. They get them for clout. I'm not getting rid of it because it gives the car, you know, a bad rep or anything, but even besides that and just the chasing the numbers, that all that anyone cares about with these cars anymore, what are the numbers that they're doing in the quarter mile and how they perform with just a downpipe and an email, you know, or a JB4. And that's not really why I like cars. I think that's the same for a lot of us that might be clicking onto this channel right now. This is a great car for people who aren't that into cars, that want something fast and luxurious to just be able to hop in and, you know, boogie, get up to the speed of traffic, or just smoke really anyone, because this car can really just take anything out on the street ultimately, now that it's got its JB4 and all those things that are done with it. This car makes north of 600 wheel horsepower on a E30 mix, so it's a ton of fun, and it still has its factory vehicle warranty, so it's, you know, how can you complain? But there are actually a lot of complaints. When you're spending this much money on a car, on a car that you wait a year for, expect it to be something really cool, and it just doesn't turn out to be that way, it's kind of a shame with a car that is this brand new and how much it costs compared to, you know, previously, like my Evo 8. I have way more complaints about this car than I ever did that car. And that car went through 3 motors and so on and so forth. But I think it's all respecting on what you're buying and understanding what you're getting into with a car. When you're getting into an Evo, you expect, yeah, you're probably going to have some motor issues. It's not going to be perfect all the time. With something like this, you would think that everything would work properly, I guess. I don't know. But really getting into the gist of it, my biggest complaint with this car, I drive my cars really hard. I want to drive my car really hard. But if I'm doing canyon runs, the last thing I want is for there to be brake fade out of the middle of nowhere and you weren't able to tell the entire time. I'll drop the video right now.
Yeah, let's go pull up.
So yeah, in that clip, that was just, there was no feel. I've driven plenty of fast cars on a track. I've driven plenty of fast cars on the street. I've been in plenty of fast cars. I've never been in a car where you couldn't tell that, you know, brake fade was on its way or about to happen. That was completely out of left field. That was here locally in Mexico on a road called Bogus. Car was perfectly fine. You know, it handles great. Don't get me wrong. The handling on this car is awesome, but you can't be surprised by brake fade. You can tell when brakes are getting warm, when your pad's starting to fade out a bit, and brake fluid, there's nothing. There's no feedback. And on top of that, I think going into my second complaint, this kind of ties in with it, is there's no like front end steering feel in this car. You don't feel connected. The steering wheel doesn't feel like it's connected to the front end of the car. You feel like you are driving a video game. And if I want to drive a video game, I'm gonna go hop on my sim. Like, I got a sim up in my room just to race on a video game. I don't want to deal with those types of issues. So yeah, I think the disconnect from the steering feedback, the haptic feedback that you get from the steering, it's not there. You don't feel the roads and the bumps like you do in some other cars. And I don't think that necessarily just goes for this car in particular. I think it goes for most modern cars. Audis, Mercedes, M cars, they're all so dull when it comes to steering. It's not something that I like at all. I want a car that has, you know, good feeling in the steering wheel like a Porsche. But I don't have Porsche money yet, but we're getting there. So hopefully soon. But until then, I still want something that is incredibly fun and enjoyable to drive. Because of its disconnect from the front end, it makes you reliant on the rear end to really find the limits and know where the limits are at of the road, of the tire, and of the car, which is constantly, like, not necessarily putting you in a dangerous position while you're driving the car, but a position that's not necessary of being on edge. You shouldn't have to be trying to force any sort of oversteer in order to feel the car, because that's really the only way to feel this car is by inducing oversteer or pushing the car into the limits of the rear tires. The front end has insane grip, but with that insane grip, you have no feel. So there's no balance. This isn't a balanced car whatsoever. Don't get me wrong, I'm still incredibly grateful to have it and to be able to drive something like this. But like I said, I'm spending this much money on a car. I want it to be perfect. So that leads us into our next point about the car being perfect. It's not perfect. Even from a technological standpoint, it's not perfect. Remote drive has maybe worked 3 of the, I'm gonna have a rough guess here, 50 to 60 times I've tried to use it. Speaking on that note, I paid for that option for it to be able to work. $300 or $500 option, which if it was 500 bucks, that's insane. So I think it was 300, but it doesn't work. I wanna be able to come out to my car after being in a restaurant, hop in it, and have oil temps up to where I want it to be so I can just start driving it hard. I don't wanna have to hop in the car and go cruise around for 10 minutes or sit there for 10 minutes waiting for it to warm up. I understand that, you know, I'm selling this car to get something older that's not gonna have remote start. I don't expect a Japanese car out of the 90s to have remote start. That's not the reason I'm buying it. This car, it was a cool feature, so I optioned it. So yeah, I think remote starts on that note. I think this is like 0.4 or 5 now. I drive 8, is super finicky with CarPlay. I would say 1 out of every 5 times I get in the car, CarPlay actually works properly. And if it's not working properly, I have to disconnect my phone, press and hold the start stop button for 30 seconds and let it reset, and then reconnect my phone so I can even be able to use Apple CarPlay. And last things last, I mean, this is kind of B2 suspected, and I understood this going into this car. I understand what the S58 sounds like. This actually sounds a lot better than I thought it was going to sound, how I have it set up with its 3.5-inch fat boy downpipes and secondary cat delete. Sounds good, but it still sounds like an S58. It still sounds like a twin-turboed inline-6 from BMW. That's just a rattle can. If that was one of the only issues with this car that I had, I'd be keeping it. It'd be perfectly fine, but it's not. And so that's just one other thing that just makes it not enjoyable. As a car person, I want to have a car that I can hop in and really appreciate the sounds. If that's not one of the reasons that I appreciate it, then I'm either enjoying it for clout, luxury, I guess speed, but it's a dangerous speed. You don't have a great sense of speed in this car. You're entering a corner at 100 mile an hour. There's not good tire feedback. So the slightest hiccup or anything, you're gonna get busted. You're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get yourself hurt. You're now risking a more expensive car. Like, this isn't something that you just go mob down a back road with and total and go, oh, well, whoops. Not the way it goes in something like this. So ultimately, not for me. If you're a person who has been looking at getting a G87, you're not super into cars, you don't have time, you gotta go drive to your real estate appointments to go try and sell a house, like, by all means, get this type of car. If you just want to go fast or have someone hop in it and give them a good time, whatever. But if you're someone who truly likes cars for what they are and how they perform, how they sound, how they feel, how they're balanced, how exciting they are, don't buy this car. It's not the move. Another thing that I also forgot to mention about these brakes is, so there's a comfort and there's a sport mode with these brakes. Inside the car, obviously, not adjustment on the brakes themselves. But it has been proven lap after lap by some people who, you know, race these things on the weekly basis. The sport mode is so inconsistent. He has to change braking zones while he's driving it because he doesn't know how that bite's going to be with the same amount of foot pressure applied to the brake pedal. Instead, he puts it in a comfort mode because it gives him a better feedback. That doesn't make any sense. There's no justification for something like that. There's no reason you put your sports car into its comfort braking mode to have peak, best, most accurate performance while on a racetrack. That's absurd. I hope this short little video maybe gave you some insight if you're looking at this goes for all G80s, by the way, not just this car. This goes for the G80 M3 and the G82 M4, or really any other G chassis BMW for that matter. But this is what I've got, so this is what I'm talking about. But I've driven a handful of other, you know, high performing, fast G80s. And the advantage they have over this car is obviously the xDrive, which xDrive is not going to be coming to the M2. But I'm not going to bag on that because I knew that. That's why I bought my M2. I knew it was only going to be rear-wheel drive, which is great. I don't personally care to have an all-wheel drive car, but for many of you, just know that will be one thing that you may want, especially if you're the realtor that I'm talking about. If you want to launch it from a red light, then this car is not for you unless you want to ride traction control the entire time. Or if you want to launch from a red light and do the fattest burnout ever, then yeah, that's one of the really cool things about this. I think you guys have seen my videos and seen this plate frame, then you probably know how I'm already going to drive. So I like to drive my cars aggressively. This one's not it. Some of you have been asking, what am I getting next? JZX100. I think it's going to be the perfect car for what I want to do, what I enjoy cars with, and just the fun factor of what I like to play with cars on. So I think it'll be a good fit. I'll probably document, well, I will for sure document my journey of, buying a chaser once this car is sold and importing one. I'm not going to buy one here locally in the States. I want to import one. Plus, as a 20-year-old, this is not a great financial investment, which I knew. Don't like hop in the comments and be like, oh, well, I could have told you that. You're an idiot. Yes, I knew that. That being said, if it was something that was like worth the depreciation, it was so much fun that like the depreciation itself just didn't matter. That's one thing. It is fun, but it's not that much fun. I'll get into a JZX100 and it'll be so much fun and hold its value and continue to go up a ton over the next few years. But on that note, here's probably one of the last videos you guys will see with my 2024 BMW M2. I may do a like POV nighttime drive or a canyon run with it, maybe one last video before it sells, unless it sells super quickly. But if you are looking to buy a G87 M2 and you want one, this one is for sale. But on that note, I'm going to go cook up some steaks and enjoy the rest of my Monday night. I'll catch you guys next time, and thanks for coming.